All right, the team from the Dolphins started off unreal last year and then a bit of a horror run with injuries and ended up finishing 14th.
Surprise depth is what killed them.
Yeah.
For a brand new team.
And we definitely spoke about how on paper the depth might have been an issue. You were pretty much bang on. You went 13 last season. Monks, you went 15, and I had them as a spoon. I thought didn't matter that it's they're being coached by the GOAT. I didn't think they had the cattle. I thought their spine was lackluster on paper compared to the other clubs. And, geez, I had egg on my face the first 2 months. And then, if not for injuries...
Yeah, sure. Get hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
On paper, they're looking good this year. They bring in Farnworth and Flegler, as aforementioned. Jake Avarillo comes in. Oren Keeley, maybe pushing for an edge position. He comes over from the Knights. And no really big outs. SASA going to Hull, and Oliver Gildart goes to Hull Kingston. No huge losses from a name perspective. It's going to be interesting to see how they line up. I think... there was some talk that Farnworth's got to play fullback. I don't think that's going to happen.
It's got to be the Hammer. Hammer was playing one in the trial game.
Yeah, so it'll be Hammer 1, Katoa...
After the season he had last year.
Katoa 6, Sullivan, O'Sullivan 7, and Jeremy Marshall-King 9, with Farnworth probably just going straight into the centres there.
Yep.
Forward pack is old but good. We saw... Felice Kafusi taking souls last year. They're only going to get better with
few suspensions because of it.
That is true. I think they went a little hard in the book in a few of them, but regardless, he can certainly dish out the whopper. And then you've got the Bromwich boys, and that pack only gets boosted by Thomas Flegler coming into it. Who wears 14 might be interesting. Is it going to be Milf? Is it going to be Cody Nikarima? Or will one of them start at 6 and the young Isaiah Katoa plays out of 14? I feel like Katoa will be the starting 5'8", and they'll go either Milf or Nikarima as their utility. Depth is looking better as well. So that was that big issue that we had, or they had last year, was replacing guys when they went down. There's a good chance that either Mark Nichols or Jared Wallace or Ewan Aitken doesn't make this starting 17. So we're looking at sort of fringe Origin players at their best there. Not saying any of them are playing Origin this year, but guys that are handy that may miss out. Josh Kerr as well. He's pretty handy. Ray Stone. Val Tefare, who is trimmed down a lot, and we saw how deadly he could be last year. So there's guys there that aren't possibly in their, or they're certainly not in their starting 13, maybe not even in their best 17 that are handy footy players. Lemieux, who came on leaps and bounds last year. So I think depth is certainly improved on where it was, in their inaugural season. None of us has got them making the 8. We've all got them hanging around about 12, 13.
Yep.
What's the next step that they've got to take? Is it the development of Katoa? Is it Sean O'Sullivan becoming an elite 7?
Yeah,
what do you think it is?
I think one, health, and so they can build that combination. Because I think if they can stay healthy, that 13 turns into 8. Just kind of what we saw last year. I think they can be definitely a competitive football team, and the team's out there as a complete unit. And we think they're going to may have similar issues to what they had last season, and that's kind of why I've got them at 13. But I would not be surprised if they're finishing the 8th spot. Yep,
I think that's it. Like looking at the ladder, trying to predict the ladder, anything from 6 down to 13, 14 is pretty hard picking at the moment. You could have one team play really good, have an injury and fall off the bandwagon, or you could have one team that just comes out of nowhere, surprise absolutely everyone in the league. So. Yeah. It's
so interesting, isn't it? Because the top 4 and bottom 4-ish picking themselves-ish. There's always going to be one exception. You watch someone that will go real unders and someone will go real overs.
Middle 9 is just whoever.
It's kind of roll the dice on it, isn't it? I'd have them around about the same spot as the Raiders. Like at their best, could sneak into the 8. At their worst, bottom 2.
Yeah.
They have point scorers like Hammer and Osako. Like they score.
How good were they last year?
Yeah,
Jermaine Osako, like a few years ago, was like
he top point scorer?
Top point scorer last year. He had 20,
get
some Osako stats from last year. I think he had 20 tries.
20 tries, yeah. That sounds about right. Hammer did about the same.
And then they last year as well.
Fernworth. Hammer played Origin. Yeah. I think if they can get Katoa and O'Sullivan there as a unit for a long period, because Katoa, I think, was probably the only one that was stable in that position. And then he had, he had some games where I think they sat him down to, because he hadn't been performing, but he had he had Kota Rima, Milford, and Sean O'Sullivan kind of bouncing in and around out of that 7 spot. And they even switched as well. He played a bit of 7 too because they had there's other guys. So, I think there was just in their spine, there was just too much movement. And they're kind of one of those teams that if they settle and they can perform, I think they'll be fine.
24 tries for Osako last year.
Yeah.
Yep.
They can got some points in them.
Bloody oath.
Yeah.
How many did Hammer get?
He got 20.
20.
As well. Yeah.
And 244 points for Osako.
Yeah.
Incredible. So their outside backs are pretty electric. Going to be interesting to see how they go. I don't see them really getting worse, to be honest, with Farnworth and Flegler coming in.
Yeah, they shouldn't. In theory, they shouldn't.
Is it enough to get them that next step and play finals football? Not quite sure. Gold Coast Titans, they're $51 to win the whole comp this year. They finished, much like the Raiders, 13th last year and 13th in 2022. Ins, they get Keenan Palacia from Broncos. Harley Smith-Shields goes up from the Raiders. Outs, a pretty extensive list, but no huge names. Booth, Lemming, McIntyre, McKaylee, Toby Sexton, probably the biggest of the names, going down to the Dogs. How do we see the season playing out for the Titans? Their pack is pretty electric on paper. I am a little bit worried about the ageing Kieran Foran and Tanner Boyd as their halves combo. And 1 through 5, certainly not shabby, but not top end.
Yeah, well, they've said that AJ is going to play in the centres, and then that means Campbell will be the one. So it gets them a bit of X factor back there, and see what AJ can do as a centre. I don't know. Their back line essentially doesn't scare anyone. Their pack will give them a nice, good platform to work off. But they were one of those teams that just couldn't score points and faded in almost every game last year. So they could be anything, but back end. I think, what did I say? They were 14 or something.
Yeah, we've all gone quite low on them. I've gone bottom end as well. I did have them just above the Dragons. Maybe a little bit of personal bias. I've bumped them below the Dragons down to 16th. Amongst you've gone spoon. Again, maybe a little bit of personal investment there.
A little bit. I can't put Dragons down there. I don't necessarily think that's anything against the Titans. I just think there's just those teams that were below them last year have probably just taken a step up in terms of their roster movements.
They're just the team that feels like they. Not gonna. It's a bad thing to say, but they just feel like they don't compete. Like they, you stack them up their list against the other teams. And it's like I don't see how you win. That's the problem.
I think much like the Raiders, I don't see how they've gotten better. Whereas so many of these other teams that were bottom 8, bottom 9 last year, on paper at least, has gotten better. The elephant in the room that we haven't addressed, Des Hasler coming in. So they've got finally some elite coaching pedigree. Will Desi be able to get the best out of Fafita and Big Tino and their young outside backs? Consistency from Dave Fafita is going to be a huge thing. I think there was patches last year when we saw him at his terrifying best. Just about unstoppable if he gets the ball, on your goal line.
Running at 5'8" or so.
Well, that's what you should do. If you run the goal line and you can run over him and score, that's definitely what you should do. I think some elite coaching from Desi might be able to, see him be a Dally M edge back row of the year and get the best out of Big Dave Fafita. But I I just don't look at the list and look at the depth as well. Like they're only, we talk about injuries, and obviously it's applicable to any team, but a Penrith or a Brisbane is going to absorb a big injury. You saw how well they played when Cleary missed 6 weeks last year.
Yeah. They just had people to be able to pick from to slot in, whereas times
just that depth is not insane.
There is a Huss though on that list.
Yeah, brother, younger brother, I believe. So they're both their brother because Isaac Fasua didn't say that right. I think he's also the younger brother of Tino.
Yep. If they can get some form like their older brothers, then they'll be a very dangerous forward pack.
My word. Yeah. Into the Storm.
Yep.
All right, Melbourne Storm, $9, finished third last year and fifth the year before. It's interesting looking at all of our projections. This is the third year that we've done this. The lowest anyone's ever had them is sixth, but the highest anyone's had them is 2. So no one's in this Penrith sort of dominating era. No one's projected them to finish as minor premiers. Much the same this year. We've all got them top 4. They haven't recruited heavily at all. Sean Bloor comes in from the Tigers. That was in some sort of swap deal that sees Justin Olam go. A few losses in terms of names. Tarek Sims goes over to Catalans along with Jaden Nikorima.
Killed Georgie Williams during the week.
Smoked the big old beak. Georgie Williams got wrecked by a big Tarek. That's, again, talking about people that you want to not get hit by. A marauding Tarek Sims is certainly top of that list. And Tom Eisenhuth goes over to the Dragons. So did have more outs than ins.
But I guess the big in, not really technically an in, but they hopefully get, Pappy you can see out the whole year.
Yeah.
He's been playing pretty well in the trials. That's
that try that he scored just before halftime in that trial, and you're like, oh gosh, he's back. Yeah. He's back. So
he's a
crossing everything, crossing toes and hair and fingers and everything that Pappy plays a whole season without any injuries. Obviously, that horrific patella fracture a few years back, and then was rehabbing that most of last year. Comes back, plays a few games, leg gets rolled up on and fractured his fibula.
Yeah,
there was concerns around that early on. It seemed like more run-of-the-mill kind of fibula fracture. Yeah. Still a broken leg, so...
That shit sucks.
Yeah, exactly. When we're talking about run-of-the-mill, when he first did it, there was a lot of concern around compound and associated complications there. But yeah, Pappy, if he's there, healthy, 1 through 9 in terms of the spine... probably the best in the comp.
You just look at it on paper and you're just like, holy shit.
Yeah. Pappy, Munster, Jerome Hughes, Harry Grant. Harry Grant's only going to get better and better. He's still quite young. Munster and Hughes obviously right in there.
I feel like he had a down year last year as they tried to work as he tried to work out his role without the cheese and taking on more responsibility. I think now that he's had that season under his belt, I think he'll be better for it. Which is crazy to think that Harry Grant's going to get any better. And then Jerome Hughes is up there with one of the best halfbacks in the league. So
always underrated.
Yeah. And they've got the best player in the league potentially in Cam Munster when he's on. He's unbeatable.
And coached by Bellier.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas a little bit of concern last year around their forward pack and how they would hold up in the post-Bromwich Kafusi era. Didn't disappoint by any means. I think Nas stepped up big time last year. We saw Katoa, Kamikamitha get better last season. And you have to think Christian Welch missed most of last year too. So he comes back in. I think their pack's looking fine, really. Yeah. Josh King looked pretty good.
And if there's any club that's just going to find some bloke off the street and turn him into a superstar, it's Melbourne.
100%. We've seen that Jonah Pezzett, when he's come in, he's played pretty well. Tyron Wishart, they've got a little bit of half coverage if something was to happen. And if there's anyone on that list 18 through 30 that we're not super familiar with, trust Melbourne to turn him into an absolute prodigy.
Joe Chan, there we go.
You watch. So... Third, fourth.
Yeah, there'll be a top 4 team.
Yeah, so we've all got them just that tick below Penrith and Brisbane, and that's the big concern. Got absolutely hammered by both of them in finals last year. 26 zip to the Broncos, 38-4 to Penrith. There's a very clear top two, I think. I've gone a little bit low on Brisbane, but I think if you look at the bookies and where the money's going, it's pretty obvious that it's the grand finalists and then a step below down to everyone. Is Melbourne the head of that pack? I suppose time will tell.
Melbourne are always going to be a good defensive, gritty team. I think that their biggest issue last year was scoring, those X factor kind of points. Where they're going to come from, and
what X factor's coming back?
With Pappy back, then maybe that he can address that issue for him, and that again maybe that really frees them up, kind of like Walsh did last year for Brisbane.
Yep.
Anything to add?
No, not really. Yeah, I think having Pappy back's just a huge in for them. If he can stay healthy, there's no reason why they can't even break into that top two.
Yep, 100%.